Good morning, everyone. I'm just sort of adjusting my position here so that we have a good experience. I've got lots of sunlight, so I just don't want it to impact the camera. Um, just waiting a few minutes for everybody else to get into the waiting room, and then I'll let everybody in. And yeah, okay, I think we're getting ready to go here. So just to start off, everybody's camera's off and everything is on mute. I'm gonna ask that you hold your questions until the end. This is being recorded, full transparency. We are going to be emailing it out to various people that have requested it afterwards. They're not able to attend. And there's a ton of information to get through. So I want to make sure that we're rolling forward and that we leave a few minutes at the end to ask, give you an opportunity to ask questions. So I think this is going to be a shorter webinar. I think it's probably about 30 to 45 minutes, but we'll see how it goes. A maximum 60 minutes. Just want to make sure that we give you the information that we've promised and that we're able to move forward with some questions. So a little bit about Synergy, a little bit about us. So for those of you us that haven't had the opportunity to attend a presentation previously, we're a team of senior HR professionals in Western Canada. We operate in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC. We are also working in the Yukon and hopefully future Northwest Territories. So we have over 130 years of experience on our team. I think I should probably recalculate that because I think we're probably closer to 150 now. We have HR admins, HR coordinators, payroll specialists, and mid-level HR people, and then also very senior CHRO director level HR people. And so we have a very experienced collaborative team that supports all sorts of businesses, all shapes and sizes. We typically focus on businesses that are 0 to 200 employees, but we do have some larger clients that use us as a fractional team, and then we also support existing HR teams through monthly retainers, and we also do project-based work. And for smaller businesses that can't afford the fractional solution, we have a tech platform that we've pivoted to. Over the last 2 years, we've built a platform called Frank HR, which provides a simple HR technology that does the doing, the thinking for small businesses, sort of the 0 to 30 to 50 employee market that can't afford a fractional solution. If you want to know more about Frank HR, or you want to know more about the services that we offer to you or to your valued clients, we're happy to get on a quick call with you and talk about what we can do. So let's get started. And I want to preface this today. We have a very trending topic that we're talking about. And the question that we're asking today is DEI dead? And if it's not, what's the right solution for your business? And so I want to preface this by saying that I'm a very pragmatic, business-oriented HR person. And so I sometimes believe that doing less is more. And I, support DEI solutions that fit for your business. So let's talk about what's been happening across our friendly border. And let's talk about what's happening in Canada and talk about how your business can create the right balance in your own workplace to satisfy the needs of your stakeholders. So what you will learn today is we are going to actually talk about what DEI means for those of you that don't know the acronym or what it really stands for, where DEI came from, what is the historical roots of DEI. Did it just pop out of the air in the mid 2015 sort of era, or how long has it been around? We're going to talk about the controversy, so what's kind of happening today, and then we're going to talk about DEI in Canada and its evolving situation. We're going to get into the business case for DEI because there is a valid business case for it, and then we're going to talk about the pathway forward and how you can start to strike the right balance for your organization. So if everybody's good with that, we're going to get rolling. So the big first question is, what is DEI? And for those of you that don't know or haven't been exposed to the acronym, it stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so DEI, sometimes people call it EDI or EID. It sort of lands in different places, but this is basically what it stands for. So let's break this down a little bit. So diversity in the context of your business refers to the presence of individuals from a variety of backgrounds, characteristics, and perspectives. These differences might encompass things like race and ethnicity, gender, cultural origin, age, sexual orientation, disability, socioeconomic status, family status, religion. It could also mean educational background, a diversity of different educational backgrounds, diversity of experience, and diversity of skill set. So it's really like the mosaic of people that you have inside of your business. Where do they come from? What do they bring to the table? What are their challenges? How do they think? That sort of thing. When we talk about equity, it's simple. It refers to the fair and just treatment of all your employees within your business. The idea of equity is to provide fair and equal access to opportunities, resources, and rewards, regardless of the diversity of your pool or the differences such as race, gender, age, ethnicity, or background. So it involves creating an inclusive environment, an equitable environment where everybody has an equal chance to succeed and feel valued. So key aspects of workplace equity include fair pay and benefits, equal opportunities. So when we think about equal opportunities, it's like if you have a job posting for a project manager, you post it internally and allow people from all parts of the organization to apply for it. So it's not, exclusively targeted to one or two people. When we talk about equity, it includes inclusive policy, so implementing practice that recognize and accommodate diverse needs, so that people in wheelchairs or people with some sort of physical disability have the opportunity to participate like everybody else. And equity also includes active efforts towards reducing bias and discrimination, so actively addressing systemic barriers that hinder some employees' progress to make sure that everybody has an equitable or an equal opportunity to be successful in your business. In an equitable workplace, employees receive equal pay for equal work. Okay, so men and women have pay parity, and they have equal opportunities based on their skills and qualifications, not based on their gender and sexual orientation or family status. Okay, so we're talking about merit-based equity. So if you have the same skills and abilities if Kristen has the same skills and abilities as Karen over here, but Karen identifies as Indigenous, the job position is still going to go to the most qualified person. Okay, and cultural orientation or culture, the culture that you originated from isn't going to be the deciding factor of that. And inclusion, in the context of the workplace, inclusion refers to creating an environment where all employees feel valued, respected, and they're able to contribute fully regardless of their background, identity, or differences. So you don't close the door on somebody because they can't speak perfect English. It means actively fostering a culture where diverse perspectives are welcomed, where diverse perspectives are sought out, and where everyone has equal access to opportunities and resources. So if you need to explain to leaders what inclusion means, you might say something like, it's about hearing and listening to and seeking out and respecting the diverse opinions, experiences, and ideas of the team. Okay, so inclusion is really about opening your doors to other people's opinions and ideas and experiences. Okay, so that's the base definition of DEI. So let's move on and let's talk about where DEI originated. So I think mainstream media would have you believe that DEI is a new thing and that, we came into the 21st century and we're going to be, socially more responsible as corporations as we're going to take on these big media initiatives. But I have to tell you that this whole notion of diversity, equity, and inclusion has hundreds of historical references and bases to it. There's actually been, I think, 5 waves of feminism in the last 100 years. So let's go back to our ancestors and talk a little bit about the roots of DEI. So the first wave of feminism occurred in the late 19th to early 20th century. So this is very deeply rooted. This is over 125, 135 years ago, with the goal of combating some of the major issues of the time. So the right to own property, contract rights, and the fact that men actually legally owned their wives and children as property. However, the focus later shifted, the main goal becoming the achievement of women's right to vote, this is also known as the suffragette period. The suffragist movement in Canada was led mainly by white middle-class women who believed that gaining the right to vote would bolster the status of their class. An interesting fact is the first province to grant women the right to vote was Manitoba in 1916, and Quebec was the last province in 1940. So it's fairly recent history for us. Then there was the civil rights movement in the 1950s and beyond, and it was a decades-long social movement. It's still happening today. Decades-long social movement in the United States, primarily focused on achieving equal rights and opportunities for African Americans. It aimed to abolish legalized racial segregation and discrimination and disenfranchisement. The second wave of feminism, primarily active from the 1960s to the 1980s, focused on broader issues of equality and discrimination, challenging traditional gender roles, and advocating for women's rights in both the public and private spheres. It built upon the achievements of the first wave of feminism, which primarily focused on the suffragette women's vote, but addressing issues such as equal pay, access to contraception and abortion, and challenging social norms and women's roles. Through the 90s, we experienced a third wave of feminism. Into the 2000s, we've seen the Black Lives Matters movement, gay rights movement, and now today we are seeing the immigrants' rights movement. These are all seeds of the DEI initiatives that we're seeing today that in businesses. This perpetuant fight for equality, respect, and a voice to be heard and respected. DEI is deeply rooted in our history in Canada and in North America. And it's not a whim, it's an undercurrent of our human evolution. Over the decades, there have been significant efforts made to right the representation of people in the workplace, and some initiatives with success, some with no success. Today, DEI has really become a corporate platform to talk about and implement policies and processes and systems inside the business world to provide a voice for those stakeholders. Now, I have to caveat this a little bit. I am a fan of being able to support these initiatives, and I think it's our social and moral responsibility to do that. But I struggle personally with this notion that this burden is being placed on corporate North America, and that we've essentially been held accountable and responsible for the wrongs in society. So let's get into this controversy a little bit. And this is where what we're seeing today is, causing us to pause and think about what our role is individually in this, personally, and also what our role is corporately in this. Let me be clear that probably the majority of what I'm going to say on the next slide is my personal opinion and my personal experience with this. So I get the opportunity to talk to a lot of business owners, and I get to do a lot of research around this stuff so that I can help my team support our clients when it comes to these DEI initiatives. So much of what I say on the next slide is opinion, and you can see sort of up in the top right hand corner that I've, let me just move my camera a little bit, is that this is an opinion slide. Sorry, I'm going to back up. Based on my experience and the research that I've done, in my opinion, the pendulum has swung way too far. There are clear examples of companies that have gone to extreme measures to satisfy special interest groups, spending millions of dollars on initiatives that have little or no positive outcomes for their business. But the truth is, if you have employees and you pay for their time, you have a responsibility to them. And in the case of a full-time employee, for example, half of their waking time per day is spent in your business. You have a responsibility to ensure that your employees are cared for, that they have a positive experience, and it's in your best interest to make sure that they're happy, to encourage productivity and engagement. So we'll talk more about this when we discuss the business case for DEI, but quite clearly, if your employees are not happy or don't feel fairly treated or don't feel like they are heard or listened to, you will not maximize your engagement or productivity. But what we do see is a lot of companies out there where the pendulum is like really swung too far. They've taken on DEI, it's become part of their value stream. They use it as a marketing tool, and it's backfired in some cases. So south of the border, some very high profile companies like Tractor Supply, Amazon, Meta, McDonald's, and Target have been in the process of scaling back, or in some extreme cases, making a very public announcement to cancel their DEI programs since 2003. At the beginning of this year, we all know that the US President Trump issued an executive order to end all federal DEI programs. To be clear, these were programs running in the federal government offices. This was not a directive for corporate America to jump ship on DEI initiatives. Although what we did see is some of the larger American companies following that lead. And what we've learned is that the procurement process in the US government actually scrutinizes their suppliers and their vendors' DEI programs, and are basically telling suppliers at this point, like, you have to scrub your program or we're not going to use you as a subcontractor. So there's several reasons why this is happening. So first of all, obviously there's a political movement. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But one of the primary reasons this is happening is there's an economic cost to running DEI programs inside a business. So economic and cost-cutting pressures. So this is an exercise in budget reprioritization. So DEI is considered an extra initiative for a lot of companies. And when times are good, it's easy to justify the expend. When it's not good, the programs get cut. The second reason why this is happening is there's been some really interesting legal challenges in the US. So some states in the US, Florida, Texas, and Tennessee in particular, have introduced laws and legislation that limit DEI training and race-conscious hiring programs. The US Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action, and that's the practice of hiring people because of their skin color or their specific origin or diverse background. And this practice has been ruled against in education. So they're not allowed to implement affirmative action hiring in education programs in the US. There's also shifting corporate priorities. So focusing on financial goals. There's an element of DEI fatigue in corporate America, where programs aren't yielding the outcomes that they expected. So they're just basically backing off them and canceling. They're saying this really is not having the outcomes that I need. There's a political polarization. So companies are looking to avoid controversy by quietly scaling back their DEI initiatives. And stakeholder interest is having a huge impact on companies deciding on how they're going to invest in DEI. So suppliers, vendors, and customers are asserting themselves, their values, and choosing to spend their money with companies that align with their values. So two great public examples of this are Budweiser and Tractor Supply, that both made very public attempt to support special interest groups that failed. Bud Light sales dropped by about 18% on average, and they lost their top-selling position in the U.S. market as a result of their alignment with the transgender community, which their ideal customer base wasn't interested in aligning with. The outcome: some companies are canceling their DEI altogether, some are scaling back and just focusing on inclusion initiatives, which appear to be less controversial. Overall, there's an effort underway to stabilize that pendulum swing and find a balance inside of corporate America that seems to be um, at first seemed to be a bit of an overcorrection. So going full hog on DEI versus canceling everything outright, it seems like the pendulum's just swinging in the opposite direction, which won't be positive for organizations either. So what's happening with us here in Canada? So Canada's clearly a different place. We are not the 51st state, and we have a different approach to business and a different approach to DEI. So that's not to say that we aren't influenced by the media and the actions of large corporations in the US. And some of those large corporations have businesses up here, like McDonald's, quite clear. As Canadians, we typically respond more moderately to situations like this. And to some extent, it's my opinion that the Canadian business owners tend to be more cautious about the audience that they are engaging with. So we tend to look to our audience and go, what do you really want? And we tend to be more cautious with our business initiatives. Canadian business owners seem to be less likely to take a radical sort of 180-degree turn when it comes to changes and policy adjustments. Though we tend to be more moderated in our approach, we are still impacted by the extreme shifts south of the border, and it's prudent to evaluate your stance on DEI and find a measured approach that meets your business and your people's needs. So what I mean by that is, in our previous webinar, we talked about right-sizing your business, and I talked about it in the sense that it's sort of inadvertently gets lumped in with downsizing, so it has a negative undertone to it. My feeling is that DEI and right-sizing your business should be sort of annual processes that you go through where you assess, what are the outcomes we achieved over last year with the investment in these initiatives? What do we need to do this year? Do a little mini SWOT analysis on DEI and find out, what's working for you, what's not working for you, what are the opportunities that exist, and what are the threats. So we should be looking clearly and closely at what's going on in the US, and we should be taking a look at our own DEI initiatives. Whether you have them or not, we should be considering what's the appropriate thing to do for my business. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about strategy. So I want to talk now about the business case for DEI. And the initial intent of DEI was to promote diversity with the aim of creating an inclusive environment where all employees feel valued and contribute to their unique perspectives to the business outcomes. It has a very nice social and moral value proposition that, new recruits or people that are looking at potentially joining your company are attracted to. The truth is that very few businesses have the capital and resources to invest just because it's the right thing to do socially and morally. And businesses need to be successful first. So you need to have profit. You need to have the extra cash in your business to be able to invest in these initiatives. And it's not just a cash-based initiative, it's a time-based initiative. So time equals money, and profit equals success in a business. So the big question is, how can DEI initiatives help your business? So let's talk about the business case for DEI. So we know that embracing diversity, that's diversity of thought, opinion, education, experience, cultural background, embracing inclusion, so opening your door up to your team when it comes to decision-making and innovation opportunities, and creating equal opportunities can enhance creativity, decision-making, and overall business performance. It also reflects a commitment to fairness and equal opportunity in hiring, development, and advancement practices. So when new recruits are looking at potentially joining your business, embracing some sort of diversity, inclusion, and equity initiative is appealing to them. A diverse workplace values and respects these differences, recognizes that they contribute to a more innovative, productive, and inclusive environment. So inclusion is about more than just diversity. It's creating a workplace where every individual feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique perspectives. It involves intentionally fostering an environment where all employees can thrive, participate fully, and feel a sense of belonging, which ultimately drives better collaboration, innovation, and business success. Let's take a closer look at some very specific value add components to your DEI initiatives. So, taking a look at the business case for DEI, there are some very succinct value add pros or benefits to implementing DEI initiatives. First of all, implementing DEI creates a sense of equity, fairness. It enhances decision making. It allows for greater creativity and innovation. It improves your organization's reputation, not just with potential new hires, but also with your key stakeholders like your clients, your vendors, your suppliers. It improves collaboration. So the more people at the table that can share ideas, the better. It provides workforce planning options. I had a problem getting that out this morning. Provides workforce planning options. What I mean is you have a more diverse pool of internal candidates to choose from when you're taking on new projects, building new solutions for your clients, or if you're looking at succession planning. It provides expanded mentorship and leadership opportunities. It provides opportunities for growth and development, learning from each other's cultures, learning from each other's experiences. It increases what I would call your organization's intelligence. It promotes psychological safety in the workplace, and it helps build trust and engagement with your staff. A workplace that embraces the notion of diversity, diversity of thought, diversity of experience, education, cultural diversity, diversity of skills, cognitive diversity, that's the way we think, identity diversity, how we identify, and diversity of values and neurodiversity, is putting themselves in the position to build a very agile, innovative, collaborative team. So the business case for DEI is strong. When you think about new product development, or you think about new ways of engaging with your clients, imagine being able to pull from a team that has diverse education, diverse skills, diverse background, diverse cultural orientation. For instance, if you're looking at maybe developing a trade partnership with a different country like Germany or India, having those people at the table that have experience in that culture will add to your decision making and to the success of your innovation. So it's important to have people with different experiences at your table to help you make decisions, help you innovate, and help you innovate successfully. There's a strong business case for it. So let's talk a little bit about, we know there's value there, but how do we actually strike the right balance? So the truth is, the DEI is not dead, and there's a compelling business case for building a diverse workforce and practicing inclusion. That said, it's prudent for you and leaders around you to spend time thinking about what diversity and inclusion looks like in your business. So there's some really critical questions that you need to ask yourself. Let's start here with question number 1. What are your current demographics across all levels of the organization? Is there a key missing or underrepresented demographic that we should be considering? It's important to start here. Work with your leadership team, sit in a room, and power through these 7 questions that I've got for you. The second question is, what value would DEI initiatives bring to your business? It's prudent for you to be very clear on what your expected outcomes are and be prepared to measure those outcomes so that you can adjust your strategy. 3, what are your core company values, and do DEI initiatives align with who you are and where you are going? Does it make sense to make the investment? Does it make sense to build a policy, put a committee together, invest in supporting special interest groups. If it doesn't make sense, then redefine your strategy. 4, what barriers or biases, both systemic and cultural, might be impacting the people in your company? So go out and ask your employees, hey, do you feel like you have equal opportunities here? Do you feel like that we offer you the right opportunity to build new skill sets? Do you like working with your coworkers and peers from different cultures? Is there something broken that you should fix? Don't fix something that's not broken. That doesn't mean you can't implement new initiatives, but take a look at what's already happening in your business. There's a lot of companies that we work with that have systemic barriers built into their processes that keep people from learning and growing, or keep candidates from being successfully hired into your business. So have an HR person look at it through the lens of, is this are we sure that we're hiring the right talent? Are we giving people the opportunity to showcase their skills and abilities? And are we missing a component here that really makes sense for our business? The 5th question is, what are the values, ambitions, and social priorities of your key stakeholders? This is really critical. This is where Budweiser failed. This is where Tractor Supply failed. Your clients, your suppliers, your vendors, your potential new recruits, what do they want? What are they looking for? How will investing in DEI initiatives be perceived by these stakeholders? This is super important. Look, if you move forward and you implement a whole bunch of DEI initiatives and you're public about it, and your ideal customer base doesn't want anything to do with that, you are shooting yourself in the foot. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but maybe you should just do it in a different way. 6, what is your budget? Is your investment sustainable, or is this a good times initiative? Because I can tell you, if it's just a good times initiative and when times get tough, you're going to claw back on it, you are going to break the trust that you've invested in building with your people. So if you're going to go into DEI and build systems, processes, policies, practices, social engagements around DEI, be sure that it can weather the tough times. Number 7, what role will your people or your team play in championing and supporting DEI initiatives? So in larger organizations, I've seen committees, DEI committees, be put together to support these initiatives. And that's a really, really great way to get leaders and employees who are influencers involved in these initiatives. But you still have to be prepared at the senior leadership level, at the CEO level, to be able to put your muscle behind it and champion these initiatives. So, if they're going to, if your committee decides they're going to hold an LGBTQ barbecue supporting Gay Pride Month, then the CEO better show up. It can't just be well, that's what that team is doing. It has to be a whole company initiative. And it's important for people to get involved. Now, if you have a smaller organization, maybe you don't have the cycles and the time to do that, to invest in committee work, and then you need to go back to the table and revisit how you want to implement these initiatives. These are all really, really important things to do. Question number 8, what type of DEI initiatives make sense for your company? So there, I have know of a company that I think is about 25, maybe growing 35 employees. They spent $40,000 on DEI training in 1 year, thinking that it would add value to their customer base. And I would think now this person would probably say that, they probably could have gotten away with a quarter of that expense, if any expense at all. So make sure that you're making the right investment at the right time. So the couple of initiatives could include representative hiring policy. So this is like, we don't have any Indigenous people on our team. Let's go out and find some Indigenous people. You might be sacrificing merit or skill in order to fill a cultural gap in your organization. So that has to be a very strategic decision. Non-discriminatory hiring practices like blind hiring, taking names and locations off of resumes, which allow you to look at people from a very pure, raw skills perspective, and we are seeing a lot of app-based technology companies driving this sort of blind recruitment process right now. So it's pretty interesting to see that come to life. Spend some time cataloging your diversity. So have your executive assistant or yourself or your HR team look at the skills, education, experience, and cultural background of your team, and look at the numbers and look at, you know, how representative you are, so that you can understand where you sit on that diversity paradigm. You can invest in training programs. So bias training for recruiters is really important. So if there's anybody in your team that is recruiting, they should become self-aware around what their barriers are and give them some training around how to manage those biases. Everybody has them. Inclusivity training, how to bring inclusive ideas and thought perspectives to the table when it comes to decision making and innovation. Respectful workplace training, so how to talk to people from different experiences and backgrounds about their culture and their experience in a way that is respectful. Communication training. So this is an interesting one. I'm a very direct, so arguably kind of painfully blunt person that doesn't work with everybody. And, you know, eye contact, how do I frame something? So really understanding how the user at the end of my email is going to receive that email is very good. And we see a lot of people using AI tools like Chat GPT and stuff like that to tone their emails differently for different audiences, which is, I think, a super cool use of technology. Inclusivity policy. So you can get like a little more autocratic about this and say, you know, you need at least 3 people at the decision-making table, or you need an engineer at the decision-making table, or you need someone from India or Pakistan at the decision-making table because that's the market we're going into. You can also look at accommodations for diverse needs, so breastfeeding space, prayer space, flexible work hours, remote work opportunities, religious holiday recognition, different communication mediums for people that are hard of hearing or maybe can't see, or accommodations for people with neurodiversity, or accommodations for people who are disabled, like wheelchair access and stuff like that. Now we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole with the things you can do, but you can look at creating strategic partnerships with your suppliers and vendors that have shared DEI values. So we're seeing the U.S. federal government is doing this. So they're basically saying, if you have egregious DEI policies, we're not going to work with you. You're investing your money the wrong way, which, you know, right or wrong, we all have opinions about that. We can invest in acknowledging special interest group initiatives like the LGBTQ2S plus initiatives and the celebrations around that. You can set up a DEI committee. You can affiliate yourself with certain associations that represent special interest groups. You can implement pay equity policies. You can decide to celebrate cultural diversity by having like a potluck where everybody brings a dish from their different culture. Some more sensitive alternatives might include rebranding your DEI as inclusive leadership and workplace equity. So just renaming it so that it doesn't become sort of a political knife in your organization. So emphasizing leadership development, fair hiring, and workplace equity through this renaming of DEI to something that's maybe less controversial. Shift to skills-based hiring. So hiring based on skills instead of culture orientation. Embed DEI in business strategy. Don't make it just an HR initiative. If it just becomes an HR initiative, then your HR team just becomes the hug department, and it needs to be part of the strategy that drips from the top of the organization. Really important to focus on data and performance metrics. So be transparent about pay equity audits, be transparent about leadership diversity reports, take a look at, like I said earlier on, catalog your diversity statistics and make sure that that you're sharing that information with your team. Yeah, so I think that companies can sustain their DEI efforts by focusing on fairness, equity, and measurable impact. Like I said, there is a business case for it, and it's a strong business case. So it's important to find that balance. While some companies are scaling back on DEI, others are adapting strategies to maintain workplace inclusion without controversy. And that is through renaming their policies and processes, maybe taking a less aggressive, less forward marketing approach to them. Companies like yours don't have to abandon DEI entirely. Many organizations are adapting their strategies to focus on inclusion while avoiding the political pitfalls that we just discussed. So finding the right balance for your company will allow you to maximize the benefits of the DEI initiatives and ensuring that they help you build a representative and inclusive workforce. The bottom line in all of this is DEI is not dead, and there's a very strong value proposition that supports the implementation of DEI initiatives in your business. But it's important to be pragmatic and put the effort into finding the right balance so that you can implement sustainable DEI initiatives to help your company achieve your vision. So at this point, I'd like to welcome comments. I know it seems scary. While some companies are scaling back, others aren't. But I'd like to welcome comments, questions, and I'd also like to say that if you're interested in exploring this topic further, we're happy to partner with you to help you answer those important 8 questions. We can facilitate a discussion around that and help you identify what the right tools, resources, and plan and strategy for your business, given your budget and given your stakeholder interests. I really think that companies that embrace DEI in a balanced approach will scale successfully with a diverse and inclusive workforce. So let's open up the table to discussion.